I can usually tell within 5 minutes who will live a long life, not because I'm gifted, not because I can see the future, but because after more than 80 years of living and decades watching people age, patterns become impossible to ignore. Most people think longevity is decided by genetics or luck. It isn't. It's revealed quietly, in behaviors so small most people never notice them. My name is Dr. Samuel Rhodes. I'm over 100 years old. I've treated thousands of patients. I've watched people recover when no one expected them to, and I've watched others decline slowly, long before illness appeared. Their future wasn't hidden. It was visible if you knew where to look. Let me show you what I look for. The first thing I notice is how someone walks, not how far, not how fast in a race, but how consistently and intentionally they move through space. People who live long don't rush and they don't drift. Their steps are steady. Their posture is upright. Their arms swing naturally. Their movement suggests that the body is still in conversation with the mind. Walking speed is not about fitness alone. It reflects heart strength, muscle preservation, balance, neurological health, and confidence. When walking slows without a clear reason, it is rarely harmless. It tells me the body has begun to conserve, and conservation is the earliest form of decline. I watch patients lose mobility years before diagnosis. Their walking shortened, their stride narrowed, they hesitated before turning. None of this caused pain, so it was ignored, but the body was already adapting to weakness. The longest-lived patients treated walking as a daily necessity, not exercise. They walked after meals, they walked to think. They walked because movement was part of life, not a scheduled task. Your body ages at the pace you move through the world. When movement becomes optional, aging accelerates quietly. If your walking has slowed, don't panic, but don't ignore it. Walk every day with purpose, not to chase speed, but to remind the body that it is still needed. Because the heart, the muscles, and the brain listen closely to how often you move forward. This is one of the smallest movements most people never notice. I always do. People who live long lower themselves into a chair. They don't fall into it. That single motion reveals more than strength alone. It shows balance, coordination, joint stability, and awareness of the body in space. To sit down with control, the legs must support weight, the core must stabilize, and the brain must stay engaged. When any part of this system weakens, the body compensates by collapsing. I watched patients lose this ability gradually. First they reached for armrests, then they dropped the last few inches. Eventually they avoided standing and sitting altogether. None of this felt dramatic, so it went unnoticed until independence disappeared. What concerned me most was not age. It was carelessness. People who stop controlling how they sit stop protecting their bodies, and the body responds by becoming fragile. The longest-lived patients treated everyday movements with quiet respect. They rose from chairs without momentum. They sat without impact. They moved as if their body mattered, because it did. If you pay attention to how you sit down, you are paying attention to your future mobility. Lower yourself. Stay aware. Keep control. Because independence is not lost suddenly. It is released slowly, one careless movement at a time. This sign has nothing to do with physical health, yet it predicts it remarkably well. People who live long are comfortable with quiet moments. They do not panic when there is nothing to distract them. They sit, they observe, they think, they let time pass without needing to escape it. Patients who declined early often shared the opposite trait. Silence unsettled them. They reached immediately for noise, screens, or stimulation. When those distractions were removed, anxiety appeared, restlessness followed, and with it poor sleep, elevated stress, and emotional fatigue. The body interprets constant stimulation as threat. It keeps stress hormones elevated. Recovery becomes shallow. Repair slows. Over time, this invisible tension wears down the heart, the immune system, and the nervous system. I watch people age faster not because they were busy, but because they never allowed themselves to be still. The longest-lived patients had internal steadiness. They could sit with boredom without turning it into discomfort. That ability allowed the nervous system to settle and the body to repair itself daily. Boredom is not an enemy. It is a signal that the body has space to recover. If you cannot tolerate quiet, your body never fully rests. Learn to sit with stillness. Let the mind slow. Let the body catch up. Because long life requires not constant action, but the ability to pause without fear. When I watch people eat, I learn more than from most medical tests. Not what was on the plate, but how it disappeared. People who live long eat with awareness. Their pace is unhurried. They pause between bites. They stop when the body signals comfort, not fullness. Eating is a process, not a race. Those who declined early ate quickly, distracted, often standing or staring at a screen. Meals were treated as interruptions, not nourishment. This rushed eating confused hunger signals, strained digestion, and kept blood sugar unstable. Over time, the heart and metabolic system paid the price. I treated patients who followed healthy diets yet aged poorly because their eating never slowed enough for the body to register safety. Digestion requires calm. Repair begins only when urgency ends. The longest-lived patients treated meals as boundaries. They ate, then stopped. They allowed hunger to return gently. Their bodies moved easily between nourishment and rest. Eating slowly is not a preference. It is a signal to the nervous system that resources are sufficient. If you eat as if food will disappear, your body behaves as if scarcity exists. Slow down, pause, finish meals with ease, because longevity is not supported by abundance. It is protected by restraint and awareness. Recovery tells me more about longevity than strength ever did. I treated patients who appeared healthy, active, disciplined, careful, yet aged rapidly because they never fully recovered. Stress lingered, fatigue accumulated, minor illnesses took longer to pass. The body remained in repair mode without ever completing the repair. People who live long recover completely. After physical strain, they rest. After emotional stress, they settle. After illness, they return gradually, not immediately. They do not rush themselves back into normal life as if nothing happened. Recovery is not weakness, it is maintenance. I saw patients ignore recovery because they believed endurance was strength. They pushed through exhaustion, skipped rest, and carried emotional strain forward. Over time, their resilience disappeared. The body cannot accumulate damage indefinitely. The longest-lived patients respected recovery cycles. They slept deeply. They allowed quiet days. They released stress instead of rehearsing it. The body repairs itself only when it senses safety. Without that signal, healing remains incomplete. If stress from yesterday still lives in your body today, recovery has not occurred. Slow down after strain. Rest without guilt. Let repair finish its work, because longevity is not built on how much you can endure. It is preserved by how well you restore. This sign is difficult to talk about, but it is one of the most reliable. People who live long are expected somewhere. Someone waits for them. Someone would ask a question if they didn't arrive. Someone would notice the absence. I treated patients whose bodies were intact, whose lab results were acceptable. Yet they declined quickly once they became invisible. No calls, no shared meals, no one who depended on them in any meaningful way. The body interprets isolation as danger. Stress hormones rise, sleep fragments, immunity weakens. Over time, the heart and nervous system age faster than the calendar suggests. Loneliness is not just sadness. It is physiological neglect. The longest-lived patients had social gravity. They were anchors in small ways. A neighbor expected them. A family member checked in. A routine depended on their presence. They were needed. When a person is needed, the body fights harder to stay functional. Repair becomes purposeful. Survival becomes relevant. If no one would notice your absence, the body receives a quiet signal that continuation is optional. Connection does not require crowds. It requires consistency. One person, one routine, one place where your absence matters. Because longevity is not sustained by medicine alone, it is sustained by belonging. Messages beyond this point are only visible to you. Now expand sign number 7 into 1,500 characters in the same style. This sign is subtle, but it is powerful. People who live long speak naturally about the future, not grand plans, ordinary ones, next week, next season, something they still intend to do. They assume tomorrow will arrive. Patients who declined early rarely spoke this way. Their language drifted backward. They revisited the past. They spoke in endings instead of continuations. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet withdrawal from what comes next. The body listens closely to expectation. When the mind anticipates tomorrow, the nervous system stays engaged. Hormones stabilize. Repair mechanisms remain active. The immune system responds more efficiently. This is not optimism. It is biological readiness. I treated patients with the same diagnosis, the same treatment, the same care. And the difference was often belief in continuation. Those who still saw themselves moving forward healed more completely. Those who quietly accepted decline did not resist it. Purpose does not need to be heroic. It can be small, a routine, a responsibility, a person expecting your presence. The longest-lived patients were not chasing youth. They were staying involved in life. When the mind lets go of tomorrow, the body follows. If your language has stopped moving forward, notice it. Gently redirect it. Because longevity is not sustained by avoiding death, it is sustained by having something left to live into.